Imagine selling something for $1.7 million and still losing money on every single sale. That's not a joke. That's exactly what happened to one of the most famous car companies on Earth. And the car? It's sitting in a garage near you right now, the Bugatti Veyron. Stick with me, because this story is insane. By the end of this explainer, you're going to know exactly how a company can build an absolute masterpiece, lose millions of dollars doing it, and honestly, why they did it anyway.
Okay, let's just start with that number for a second. $1.7 million. When the Bugatti Veyron first hit the market, that was its base retail price. For pretty much all of us, that is just a mind-blowing amount of money for a car, right? It was this astronomical price tag that immediately anchored the Veyron as the ultimate status symbol. Literally, the absolute pinnacle of luxury and performance. And naturally, you would think at that price point, the profit margins must be absolutely massive. Well, here is where the math just gets completely jaw-dropping. Yes, the sales price was $1.7 million, but the estimated loss on every single car they sold was roughly $6 million. Let that sink in. Volkswagen, Bugatti's parent company, deliberately lost a fortune on every single transaction. They weren't just bad at math. This was a known reality. They built a world-class product, charged over $1.5 million for it, and still bled millions every time a customer drove one off the lot. To understand how something like that even happens, we have to go back to the early 2000s, and the whole story basically started with a napkin. Volkswagen's legendary owner at the time, Ferdinand Piëch, was reportedly on a train with Bugatti's head, and he just had this wild vision. His goal was simple, but incredibly complex. He wanted to build the absolute fastest, most powerful production car the world had ever seen. He didn't care about building the most profitable car. He wasn't looking for a smart, short-term business move. It was an impossible demand to just build the best, period. Piëch actually sketched out his demands right there on that napkin. He wanted 1,001 horsepower, a top speed of 400 kilometers per hour, which is about 253 miles per hour, 0 to 60 in under 3 seconds, and the absolute kicker, it had to be comfortable enough to drive to the opera in a tailored suit. Now, engineers looked at this and said, yeah, that's literally impossible. Extreme speed and quiet, luxurious comfort naturally fight each other. A race car is loud and stiff, a luxury sedan is heavy and soft. You just can't have both. But Piëch didn't care. He ordered them to build it anyway. So the engineers had to get to work, and they spent years and hundreds of millions of dollars solving physics problems that literally nobody in the automotive world had ever solved before. To hit those absurd power numbers, they created this massive W16 engine. It's essentially two incredibly powerful V8 engines just glued together. But here's the thing, when you generate that much power, you generate a catastrophic amount of heat. So to keep the car from literally melting itself from the inside out, they had to pack it with 10 individual radiators. The reality of operating a machine at these extremes is just mind-bending. For example, at top speed, the Veyron's custom Michelin tires wear out in about 15 minutes. When you're spinning rubber at over 250 miles per hour, the centrifugal forces are violently tearing the tires apart. Oh, and fun fact, if you were actually driving it at that top speed, it would drain its entire massive fuel tank in about 12 minutes, which is honestly pretty lucky because your tires would explode 3 minutes later anyway. And by the way, it costs thousands of dollars just to replace those tires. That is the extreme reality of this engineering marvel. But all of this custom engineering, breaking records, shattering the boundaries of physics, it all led straight into a brutal financial reality, the billion-dollar money problem. As we shift from the physical engineering of the car over to the boardroom, the massive financial hole of this undertaking becomes pretty obvious. 1 billion euros. That is the mind-boggling total development cost that Volkswagen poured into the Veyron research and development program. Over €1 billion were spent testing, failing, re-engineering, and perfecting the technology before a single, solitary car was ever sold to a customer. They dug this massive financial crater just to make the car exist. So let's just do the math on that to really hammer it home. The cost to actually manufacture each individual Veyron with all the hand-built custom parts and that insane R&D baked in was roughly $5 to $6 million. Meanwhile, they're selling it for a fraction of that at $1.7 million. Bugatti made around 450 Veyrons total. So basically, every time they handed the keys over to a billionaire customer, they were essentially handing them a check for a few million bucks too. If these numbers are even close to accurate, that's over $1 billion lost just in the production and sale of these vehicles.
Which brings us to arguably the most important question of this entire explainer. Why? Why in the world would anyone do this? Why would one of the most successful corporate empires on the planet willingly bleed billions of dollars on a single car model?
The answer is all about the halo effect strategy. The really crucial point to understand here is that the Veyron was never, ever about making direct paper profits. It was about making a statement for the entire Volkswagen empire. It was an absolute flex of engineering dominance.
Basically, the halo effect is this cognitive bias where the prestige of one flagship product positively elevates the reputation of an entire brand family. Volkswagen doesn't just own VW, right? They own Bugatti, Lamborghini, Porsche, Audi. When the flagship of your entire empire becomes the undisputed, fastest, most technologically advanced production car on the planet, that halo spreads. Suddenly, someone looking at an Audi feels a little more trust in the engineering. Even a person buying a standard Volkswagen Golf gets this subconscious benefit from the idea that the company building their hatchback is the exact same company that knows how to build the fastest machine on Earth. To put it in perspective, think about a Formula One team. F1 teams spend hundreds of millions of dollars every single year to build cars and win races that give them almost no direct prize money return. They do it because it's brilliant marketing disguised as engineering. Brands like Mercedes and Ferrari sell more road cars because they win on the track. The Veyron did the exact same thing. It made headlines everywhere, magazine covers, world records, primetime TV specials. If Volkswagen had tried to buy that level of global, legendary publicity in traditional advertising, it would have cost them way more than the money they lost actually building the cars.
But we aren't done yet. Because here is the plot twist that most people completely miss when they talk about the Bugatti Veyron's massive losses. Bugatti actually turned this billion-dollar loss into a massive long-term win.
Let's look at how this played out. In 2005, the Veyron launches and takes the initial massive financial hit. But then in 2016, they launched the Bugatti Chiron. It uses that same insane core engineering foundation, the massive engine layout, the complex cooling strategies, but this time it's priced around $3 million. It's built in smaller numbers, and it has vastly better profit margins. Then in 2018, they released the Divo for $8 million. In 2019, the Cento Dici drops for $9 million. These ultra-exclusive, ultra-expensive hypercars were all built using the core foundational engineering that was already paid for by the initial Veyron losses. So, the takeaway here is that the Veyron was not a failure, not even close. It was an upfront investment. Bugatti spent an absolute fortune to invent the technology, conquer the physics, and establish this untouchable reputation first. And once that was secured, they spent the next 15 years cashing in on both the technology and the prestige they bought up front. The Veyron took the hit so that the Chiron, the Divo, and everything that followed could just reap the massive financial rewards.
And that brings us to the ultimate payoff. The real lesson from this incredible story is that the Veyron wasn't built to make Volkswagen rich directly. It was built to prove to the entire world that the impossible could be done. It was an exercise in absolute, unfiltered corporate ambition. Because sometimes, losing money on purpose really can be the smartest move you make. In business, just like in high-level engineering, taking a massive, calculated risk and absorbing an upfront loss can yield long-term payoffs, incredible brand equity, and technological leaps that just playing it safe could never, ever achieve.
So I want to leave you with a question as we wrap up this explainer. Would you rather be the leader who builds something entirely impossible, pushes the boundaries of human engineering, and loses money? Or the leader who builds something safe, boring, and comfortably profitable? Let me know your thoughts down in the comments. And if you want more stories like this, where extreme car engineering meets crazy business decisions, make sure you subscribe, because I'm covering a new explainer like this every single week. See you in the next one.